All right, everybody, and welcome back to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. We have Drive Safe Dave here. We got Rick on location, running around trying to make the business work across the country so everybody truly knows what safety is all about. I think he's in Tuscaloosa at the moment, but right now we have waiting in the wings for us is Brandon Wiseman, and president of Trucksafe, partner at Childress. Brandon, are you out there where we can get to you?
I am here.
All right, Brandon. There you are. Excited to see you.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Are you hanging out in Indy right now?
Indianapolis, Indiana, yes.
Indianapolis,
Crossroads
Indiana.
of America.
What did you call it?
Crossroads of America.
Crossroads of America. I've been through Indianapolis many times, been around the loop even more times than that than I've actually been through the city. Let me ask you a quick question just so I know, because here I am. I'm way back over in Texas at the moment. It is hot. Summer came back with a vengeance. What kind of weather you got going on out there right now?
Yeah, it's high 80s right now. It's going to be
high 80s. Wish I had that problem. I just wish I had a high 80 problem going on right now, Brandon. All right, Brandon, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of want to get the audience to know who you are and what you got going on.
Yeah, so I'm a transportation attorney. Don't hold that against me. Have been practicing law in a niche area of DOT safety and compliance for about 15 years now. Had the pleasure of working with some of the nation's largest motor carriers on their safety programs, making sure they're up to snuff with all of the regulations that you all have to worry about. And so have been doing that for a long time. Just recently started my own business called Trucksafe Consulting, where we offer a lot of educational content on regulatory requirements and that type of stuff. And just out there helping motor carriers to try and minimize their risk.
You know, and you know what, you kind of got to do, you spent a little niche, and that's really truly what you do. You have a little niche. What is your, how did you get into trucking? All right. I mean, most attorneys, when they go into law, don't go, you know what, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start out helping trucking companies be better, safer out there on the road. I don't think most of them do that, but I think you found a way to do that. How did you get involved in this part?
Yeah, so I followed my dad into it. My dad is a longtime partner at the largest transportation-related law firm in the country in Indianapolis. And so went to law school, and then right out of law school went to work for the same firm that he worked at and worked there for a long time until the beginning of 2021 when I kind of broke off on my own, started my own thing. So that's how I got into trucking. He was a safety director at a trucking company before he went to law school. So it's kind of in my blood, I guess you'd say.
You said, and you've worked at, and it says here, just so you know, I really would like to know a little bit more about Trucksafe. Just because that is, you are the president at Trucksafe. So tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So the, practicing law at the law firm for many years, one thing that my motor carrier clients would come to me and ask me for over the years was a good resource for training materials, not necessarily for their drivers, but more so for their safety managers, anybody in a position of managing regulated drivers. And they were looking for a resource for training on the safety regulations. What do they need to know about driver qualification? What do they need to know about hours of service rules, vehicle maintenance, drug and alcohol testing, all of these topics that I've been able to work with for many years now. And so I just thought I never had a great place to turn them. So I thought I'm just going to break off on my own here and I'm going to build it myself. So first 6 months or so of starting Trucksafe was spent developing a curriculum that's aimed at safety managers that covers the nuts and bolts of DOT compliance and what it takes to manage a safety program. And so that's primarily what we do at Trucksafe. We've got about 6 separate courses now that we offer to trucking companies of all types and sizes. And then we also do some more traditional consulting work. So we work with carriers on developing their safety policies and their driver handbooks and their drug and alcohol policies. We do mock DOT audits for them. But really what we're passionate about is getting the content and the education out there that I've found seems to be lacking. And so we do that a few different ways. Not only the courses, we also have our own video podcast, for example, where we bring on guests to talk about DOT safety and compliance, and we also have our own social network called the Trucksafe Compliance Network that's built specifically for safety directors and risk advisors and trucking company owners. So it really all comes back to education and getting that information out there. So trucking companies have that information, that knowledge base to be able to manage DOT compliance.
You know, Brandon, as we sit here and we're talking about at BCB Live, the safest station in the nation, it's necessary. And when you discuss it, and as you're talking about it, there is an entirely incredible area in which so many things you have to do as a trucking company to be good at the safety part of it that's required under the DOT regulations. And I find that a lot of companies don't do all of those well, especially when they don't have, I guess what I wanted to say is when the owner is also the safety director and also part dispatcher, there is so much that gets missed in the necessary stuff that makes that happen. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and to your point, I don't give those folks too much grief over it because they are wearing so many hats. They've got so much to worry about, and then you pile on top of them hundreds of regulations that they have to understand as if they are a lawyer, and then to make sure that all of their drivers fully understand that. It's just a tall task. And so, and we as an industry have not done a great job of making that information available to them. And so that's kind of what we want to do, is get that information in an accessible way, in a way that is in layman's terms, that makes sense to them. So yeah, that's kind of our mission.
And what are some of generally the most common problems that you address when you first walk in? And I know you do a mock audit. What are some of if you walked into a place that said, hey, we're great, you walk in, what are some of the most common problems that you address right away?
Biggest problem for virtually every motor carrier that I ever work with is how reactive we are as an industry. We have we know about all of these serious accidents that happen. We hear about these nuclear verdicts that are out there, and that's kind of the elephant in the room. We all know that's a possibility for us at any given moment, but we don't take the time to ask ourselves the tough questions of what exactly are we doing to prevent that from occurring? Are we at least following the rules that we are supposed to be following? And so it's that idea of being proactive that is lacking at most motor carriers. Beyond that, when we start to get into really the nitty gritty of what violations we tend to encounter, we see a lot of hours of service violations. I think the overall results of our mock audits that we do are pretty consistent with the results that you see out of the DOT. They publish their list of violations that they most often encounter when they go in and do real audits, and our experience is the same. It's mostly going to be the things you just had an officer on talking about them. It's going to be CDL type violations, drivers not being properly licensed to operate the types of equipment that you're expecting them to operate. Those are fairly common. And then log falsifications is always at the top of the list, with drivers either deliberately or inadvertently falsifying their records of duty status, and those can cause tremendous problems. Those hours of service violations, for example, are the only violations that the DOT double weights when it comes in and does an audit. So they carry twice as much weight than any other violations that they discover in the context of an audit, and that can pretty quickly sink a motor carrier in the context of those audits. So it's those hours of service violations, the driver qualification violations, that we tend to find most frequently.
So and as you talk to it and about how you're finding new ways to educate, because I think what you're doing here is fantastic, and not only shoring up their difficulties with the legal part of it, but I truly believe that by you becoming a podcaster, speaking to these issues, and also inferring them in the social media environment, you're helping to develop a safety culture also within that organization, right? I mean, you want everybody in there to not only know about safety, but to believe in what they're doing and to believe in the safety.
Yeah, safety culture, has become almost a buzzword. It's I fear that it's become almost kind of meaningless business speak. It's a word we use. It's a word we put on our websites. If we're a motor carrier, we say that safety is our number one priority. My question to you is that really true? Is that really the foundation of your business? And if it's not, then you need to look yourself in the mirror and make that a reality. Take the steps it takes. It costs time. It costs money. It costs time. It takes effort to put these things in place, but it's imperative that you do so, because all it takes is one bad accident it's going to be lights out for you. We saw this, just late last year. We saw the first ever $1 billion jury verdict in our industry rendered against a couple of trucking companies following a highway accident in which there was a fatality. And I look at that case and some of the things that went wrong there. The driver at issue in the case wasn't properly licensed to operate the truck that he was operating. Another driver in the case drove straight from Canada all the way down to Florida without taking a break and was several hours beyond his hours of service limits. And it's those things that add up and they ultimately lead to these catastrophic accidents. And so, that's a reality that we have to be concerned with if we're a trucking company. We cannot put our head in the sand to these types of issues.
And as we sit here and we talk about it, I think it's necessary when you start from, and I truly believe this, and I just want to mention it, I truly believe that starts with ownership, and that starts with the top of any trucking company when you design and or implement this idea that safety is first. These people have to believe it above all else, and that no matter what, safety has to be first before you can be productive. Safety has to be before you can, put a person on the road. Safety, and that goes all the way to hiring practices, to orientation. What are you doing during orientation? To putting your people out there first on the road. How are your dispatchers handling, communicating, and dealing out dispatches? How is your planning team planning? How are you customer service orientation? Are you going to the safe customers? Are you talking to safe customers? I believe all of it comes, it's like a pyramid. I think you have to start at the top and it creates that flow downward. If you don't have it up here, how are you going to have the support down at the bottom where the driver is out there on the road?
Yeah, I'm completely with you, Dave. It starts from the top down. If ownership does not have buy-in to this idea, then you don't have the foundation on which to build a successful safety program. If drivers are looking in and seeing the ownership pushing drivers to exceed their hours of service limits to get the job done, then any efforts that your safety team puts into compliance are just not going to be taken seriously. So it does have to start from the top down. And unfortunately, more often than not, I'm walking into trucking companies where their safety team recognizes the issue and the concern and the shortcomings that they have. But then I never see ownership in any of those meetings, and I fear for the outcome of those trucking companies.
If ownership's not involved in the beginning and the building of that, you're not going to have a solid foundation upon which to build. And I believe you 100%. Look, I got a bunch of questions I want to ask you, and I only have a few more minutes. How can companies and drivers better protect themselves from these lawsuits that we're talking about? We're discussing, and I think the answer is pretty simple, but I think it's a difficult thing to do, right? I think it's a little bit of both worlds. When you want to speak to that?
Yeah, when you look at these cases, these multi-million-dollar cases, there have been a number of studies of these cases over the years. The American Transportation Research Institute, ATRI, put out a great study a couple years ago about what is contributing to these multi-million-dollar jury verdicts. And the thing that we learn is that the way that these cases are prosecuted is to attack not necessarily the circumstances of a particular accident at hand, but rather to attack the reputation, the safety-related reputation of that motor carrier, and to cast that motor carrier as a bad actor, as someone who didn't take safety seriously, and that's what led to this accident. And it's that idea. This is called the reptile theory of litigation, where the plaintiff's attorney appeals to the emotions of the jury to say, how can we let this motor carrier who doesn't take safety seriously continue to operate out in the country? And so that is what inflames the minds of the jury and leads to the juries wanting to do something to fix that. And the tool that's available to them to fix that is to impose what we call punitive damages intended to punish the motor carrier for having a deficiencies in its safety program. And so my advice to carriers, to every carrier, is when it comes to protecting yourself against these types of verdicts, it's important to take stock of where you stand from a safety and compliance standpoint. Where are your gaps? You have to engage in some self-critical evaluation and first understand where we are deficient. How are our CSA scores? How is our out of service rates? The officer you had on was talking about these out of service rates. All of that data is publicly available and is going to be brought out against you in any litigation in which you're involved. So it's important that you look at that data, identify the areas where you are weak, and work to fix those areas. And that's all goes back to being proactive.
And it doesn't hurt to have a consultant to come in and help you identify the areas of concern and also how to shore up your liabilities and further help you protect yourself in the future. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm the magic bullet that's going to fix all of your problems. It's going to take work on your part, but I can help you identify your deficiencies and know where to look for your deficiencies so that you can then work to, fill any gaps that you may have.
Hey, this Trucksafe, I got a little notation here, and tell me what is the Trucksafe Compliance Network app? Do you have that? Are you developing that? What is that?
Yeah, so Trucksafe Compliance Network is that kind of social network that I mentioned at the beginning that we launched probably 4 or 5 months ago now. This is another way where we try and deliver content, compliance-related content to motor carriers. It's a social network. The app is available on the App Store, the Google Play Store. Just search Trucksafe and you'll find it. It's a place where safety directors and safety managers and insurance professionals and anybody involved in highway safety gather together and ask questions and learn from one another about what they're doing to, manage their safety program. We put out a lot of webinars in that network for anybody that's a part of it. It's free to join. We just wanted to create the space for safety professionals to gather together and learn from one another.
I find that fascinating and excellent in the leadership role to take care of that. If anybody wants to get in contact with you directly about Trucksafe and partnering with Trucksafe at all, Brandon, how do they do that?
Yeah, go to trucksafe.com or just email me at brandon@trucksafe.com. We haven't even talked about it, but we also do the legal side of things still. I'm still a lawyer, recovering a lawyer, I guess you would say. And I still practice in this area of DOT safety regulations. And I do that through a small law firm called Childress Law. So if you're interested on the legal side of things, also look up Childress Law and you'll find us.
And if they want to find you, they can find you on your podcast. How?
Trucksafe Live. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts.
All right, and you will be the star of Trucksafe Live. Is that correct, sir?
I'm the host. I'm like you, Dave. The stars are the guests we bring.
I know. I like to consider myself a star sometimes. I don't. But anyway, I tell you what, I appreciate you coming on, Brandon. I am going to look forward to jumping in on Trucksafe, that compliance app. I want to see what you're going and what you got going on, man. It is exciting and fun. Here we are out here. That's what BCB Live is all about. It's about being safe out here on the road and about bringing the news and the information necessary to be successful. And I think this is going to play a big part in that and also help people find ways and avenues to do that and be safe. All right, before you go, Brandon, look, we always ask our guests that come on, we ask them to state their name, who they're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Can you do that, sir?
Sure, I'll give it a shot here. Hey, everyone, Brandon Wiseman here from Trucksafe and Childress Law, and you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
Wow, you did that almost like a professional. It's pretty scary. I do it. I say it every day, and I mess it up about 3 times a day. So congratulations to you on that. Hey, thanks a lot for coming on. Can we look forward to maybe bringing you back and talking to you about some other specific topics in the near future?
Yeah, let's do it for sure.